Hello! This video lesson will provide an overview of the design process. In this lesson, you will learn the elements of the design process and how they can be applied to engineering problems. A design process can be defined as a systematic problem-solving strategy with criteria and constraints used to develop many possible solutions to solve or satisfy human needs or wants, and to narrow down possible solutions to one choice. So what is design? Design is a generic term that is often used to refer to anything that is made by a conscious human effort. It is also a process used to systematically solve problems. Examples you can use design to solve could include: how do you get ready for school? How do you fix a broken shoe? And how do you make a cell phone more durable? So now that we know what design is, let's take a closer look at the design process. Using the design process provides a basis for understanding. The design process we are looking at in this lesson is the Project Lead the Way design process, but it is one of many different design processes that exist. The design process serves as both a guide and a series of checkpoints for effective problem solving. The design process is iterative, which means that it repeats a series of steps over and over until a desired outcome is achieved. It is common to repeat steps of the design process several times before the best solution is found. The design process pictured to the right is a visual representation of each step. Think of the design process as a circle that you can repeat as many times as you need. You may also need to move in between the individual steps back and forth multiple times. The first step of the design process is to define the problem. Problems exist everywhere and vary in complexity and importance. The best problems are ones that do not have a known solution or have a solution that can be significantly improved. All problems need to be valid and justifiable. This means that a problem is a problem because there is evidence to support it, not just because someone says it is. A problem must also be worth solving because of its need and cost. In some cases, you may find a problem that is not valid or justifiable. If that is the case, then you as the designer must define a new problem. How can we determine if a problem is valid? To figure this out, we have to ask, who says it is a problem? Is the problem worth solving? And what are the specific criteria and constraints required to solve this problem? How do we determine if a problem is justifiable? We have to include a clear justification of why the problem is worth solving. This justification should include multiple, comprehensive considerations from a variety of viewpoints. It should also include a description of a community or group of people who would benefit from solving the problem, as well as credible and properly referenced sources. The second step of the design process is to generate concepts. In the Generate Concepts step of the design process, you will need to research your problem, brainstorm possible solutions, consider additional design goals, and select and justify an approach. Once you have completed your research, you will brainstorm multiple solutions. Once you have a variety of ideas, you will need to narrow it down to one solution. It is really hard to conclude this step of the process because research could continue indefinitely. Also, at any point in this step, it may be necessary to adjust problem statements or start over with a new problem statement. The last consideration you will need to have is that if the technology necessary to develop your solution does not exist, scientific research may be necessary in order to pursue your solution. One of the key steps to generating concepts is brainstorming. Brainstorming is the process of generating multiple ideas for one problem. There are some basic guidelines you should follow when brainstorming. These include capturing all of the ideas you create, allowing all group or team members to contribute, and not criticizing any ideas that are contributed. While brainstorming, your goal should be to work for quantity, or as many ideas as possible, so that quality ideas can be found. Using other people's ideas as launch pads or piling on is also encouraged. Also, don't try to keep the process tidy. Brainstorming is often messy and disorganized, so allow the free-for-all flow to happen. The last guideline is to encourage big thinking. No idea is too crazy during the brainstorming process. The third step of the design process is to develop a solution. To complete this step, you will create one detailed design solution and justify your solution path. You may notice that steps 3, 4, and 5 often overlap. This is because of the iterative nature of the design process. These steps can and should be repeated for an optimal solution. If the solution you have created is found to be invalid or can't be justified, then you as the designer must return to a previous step in the design process. The fourth step of the design process is to construct and test. In this step, you create a testable prototype and plan how the prototype will be tested to ensure performance, usability, and durability. The prototype is then tested and data is collected and analyzed. Designer or group of designers should always keep the testing process in mind, even during the design phase. If a testable prototype can't be built or test data indicates a flawed design, you as a designer must return to a previous step in the design process. Step 5 of the design process is to evaluate your solution. In this step, designers evaluate a solution's effectiveness, reflect on the design, and recommend improvements, and, if necessary, redesign the solution. Based on the results of your tests, you may have to face some tough decisions about your next steps. If the results from your tests indicate that your design does not meet expectations, you may have to return to a previous step and revise your design. You will also have to return to a previous step of the design process if your solution doesn't solve the intended problem. The sixth and final step of the design process is to present your solution. In this step, you document your work and communicate what you have accomplished. The ability to present findings is a great learning opportunity. An effective presentation of a design proposal is a critical step in the design process because it must clearly state the main points and precise details that enable a product to evolve from an idea to the marketplace. If the need for any improvements or redesigns are found at this stage, you as a designer will need to repeat a part or all of the design process. Now that you have learned about the steps of the design process, let's take a look at the deliverables you will need to complete as you move through the different steps. During Define the Problem, you will need to complete a design brief. A design brief is a written plan that identifies a problem to be solved, criteria, and constraints. The design brief is used to encourage thorough thinking before attempting a solution. In the Generate Concepts phase, you will complete a decision matrix, or a tool that is used to compare different designs against one another using specific criteria. While developing your solution, you will need to create a graphical model, which will be a representation that provides technical information necessary to produce a product. This graphical model should include things like dimensions or other details that are needed to create a working model. In the construct and test step of the design process, you will create a working model or a representation of the designed object, process, or system that functions according to the design. You will also need to create a test report, which should include the data and analysis from your prototype testing. When you evaluate your solution, you will need to create a list of recommendations to optimize or redesign your solution. The final deliverables are created in the Present the Solution step and are a formal presentation and a project portfolio. The presentation will allow for planned information to be shared with an audience. The project portfolio is a collection of documents that represent the work you have done and should include a self-reflection. This concludes this video lesson on the design process. Thank you for watching.